In the ads that I've been doing for Quince, I've been talking about their 100% Mongolian cashmere sweaters, and I just got my first one, and it feels luxurious. And who doesn't like the good things in life? Quince offers a range of high quality items at prices within reach, like 100% Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50, washable silk tops and dresses, organic cotton sweaters, and 14 karat gold jewelry. The best part, all Quince's items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. By partnering directly with top factories, Quince cuts out the cost of the middleman and passes the savings on to us. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. And I love that. Give yourself the luxury you deserve with Quince. Go to quince.com/traveler for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/traveler to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/traveler. And thanks to Quince for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
Amateur Traveler, episode 935. Today, Amateur Traveler talks about castles and car museums and Christmas markets, baths and beer and Bessen, as we go to Stuttgart, Germany. This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler. Let's talk about Stuttgart and Baden-Wuerttemberg. I'd like to welcome back to the show Kristin Montgomery from growingglobalcitizens.com and from mycornerofgermany.com. Kristin has been on the show before talking about Brittany, but this time we're talking about Stuttgart, Germany. Kristin, welcome back to the show.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here.
And if you haven't heard that episode we did on Brittany, that was a wonderful episode. So that's one of the reasons Kristin is back. She did a great job for us before. Kristin, what is your connection with Germany? You were living in Wisconsin when last we talked.
Correct. Yeah. So I am a teacher and I've taught all over the world in international schools, and I'm teaching at an international school here in the Stuttgart area.
Excellent. Can we put Stuttgart on the map first?
Yes. So Stuttgart is the capital of the state of Baden-Wuerttemberg in Swabia in southwestern Germany. And it's the sixth largest city in Germany. There's over 600,000 people. The metro area, though, is about 2.5 million people. So it's north of the Black Forest, northeast of Strasbourg in France, and south of Frankfurt.
Excellent. And why should someone go to Stuttgart?
So Stuttgart is the car capital of Germany. It's home to Porsche and Mercedes Benz. It's a wine region. Yeah. In fact, there are actually vineyards within the city, which is pretty cool. And around here, there are some amazing castles and also some really cool special events that I'm going to tell you about.
What kind of itinerary are you going to recommend for us?
So I'm going to recommend a few days here in the city of Stuttgart, and then the rest of the time, you could either stay in the city or you could post yourself in different areas. But with the public transportation, with the exception of one or two castles, it's quite easy to do day trips from Stuttgart if you're someone that would prefer to stay in one place the whole time.
And you say public transportation just in case someone doesn't feel like driving in Germany?
Yes, and they do go very fast on the roads here, as you may have heard. So the public transportation is namely trains. And there are some excellent deals on getting passes for buses and trains. If you're living here in Germany, or if you could have someone else buy it for you, you can get a month-long pass that gets you transportation on all the public buses and trains, except for the very fast intercity ones. And that's about 58 euros. So if you are living here, or going to be here for a long period of time, that's definitely worth getting.
Excellent. Where to first?
All right, so you're going to start off right in the city of Stuttgart. So geographically, the region around here is hilly, but it's not mountainous. The
Hmm.
city is in a valley, and the heart of the city is Schlossplatz. A Schloss is a castle or a
Hmm.
palace, and it's actually a new palace, the Schloss that is here, but Schlossplatz is the area around the palace, so that's the heart of the city. And here is where you have all the outdoor entertainment, you have the meeting place, you have all sorts of special events, you have museums, you have shopping, you've got everything right there.
And when you define new in Germany, you're saying almost 300 years old.
Yes,
Okay.
not quite new. Here's the story of why it's called the New Palace. So in 1744, there was a new Duke of Württemberg, and I believe he was about 16 years old. And of course, like many teenagers, thought that he needed some new digs, new place to live. And he threatened to leave Stuttgart and the old palace and go back to Ludwigsburg, where the main palace was, unless they built him a brand new palace. So they built a brand new palace, which is the Schlossplatz area now. And the old palace became the Württemberg State Museum. And the old
Okay.
palace is beautiful also, but it's much more medieval, much more of a castle feel as opposed to a palace feel. And that is a really well done museum that would definitely be worth a visit. It covers the whole region from about the Ice Age to the end of the monarchy. And some of the
Okay.
things that you can see there would be a 70,000-year-old hand axe. There's a lot of gold, the crown jewels of the kings and queens of Württemberg, and also clocks, of course, because if you know, the Black Forest area is home of the cuckoo clock.
I got stuck at 70,000-year-old index. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely a great museum, really well done, and has a lot of different things.
So we started at the Schlossplatz. That's not easy to say.
No.
And are we touring the palace or what are we doing when we're at the square?
So the palace itself, unfortunately, is actually now government offices. So it's not something that you can tour, but you'll definitely want to go there and walk around the gardens. There are a number of gardens in the area, and there's a lot of special events here. For example, when they had the Euro Cup last summer, that's where
Hmm.
they had a whole area for that event. That's where they'll have the New Year's celebrations. So you're just enjoy that area. And then you're going to wander down the street, the main street that goes right through Schlossplatz, which is Königstrasse or King Street. And it's one of the longest shopping streets in Germany. And you're going to make your way down to the central train station, the Hauptbahnhof. And it doesn't sound like a train station would be that exciting, but to tell you some of the background of this, Stuttgart is home to the Stuttgart 21 project. And what is happening here has been very controversial because it is a project that is now $10 billion over budget.
Oh my. Okay.
Yes. So it's known in Europe as a, let's say, controversial project. However, when it's finished, and they've kept pushing the date back every year, now they're saying 2026. It was supposed to be finished in 2021, hence the
Hmm.
name, but it is a really complex project because they are changing the railroad tracks. So right now the trains need to come in and there's only a one way in. So then when they go back out of the station, they have to go in reverse and go back the way they came. So this whole project is going to be something like 44 bridges, 16 tunnels. They're
Wow.
changing the tracks to make them perpendicular to where they're coming through now. So it's going to be completely different. But the cool thing for tourists will be not only, of course, that there's a nice new train station, but the architecture. They're building the station under the ground with these kind of white cement funnels that have then glass
Hmm.
bubbles that will pop over the ground. And they're going to have all this new land to build with where the old tracks were. So it's really an urban planner's dream, and the city will be doing a lot of cool things once they get access to all this land. So there's going to be a lot of cool park space and new developments there.
Hmm. Interesting.
So right next to Hauptbahnhof, if you want to go through there, is my favorite beer garden in Schlossgarten. Stuttgart is known as being a city that has a lot of really green areas, lots of parks. And if you're in Stuttgart, you have to go to a beer garden, of course, really, if you're in Germany. And this is a nice one. It's one of the few places that is open on Sundays because things are generally all closed on Sundays. There's live entertainment. You can go up and buy your food and your drink and just hang out there. While you're there, I thought I would tell you about a few different food things that you could order. One of the specialties here in the area is the Käsespätzle, and it is
So
cheese
the cheese,
spätzle. Yeah, exactly. And if you don't know what spätzle is, it's like little bits of noodle dumplings, tiny
like a
little
fried
noodles,
dumpling. Yeah.
macaronis. Yeah, but this is with cheese and then some fried onions, I think, on top. And if you don't want it with cheese, another popular combination that still is strange to me, but it tastes quite good, is lentils with spätzle. And then you'll
Hmm.
have half the plate of
Okay.
lentils, half the plate of spätzle, and then you'll have essentially hot dog sausages on top of that. So a
I would try
popular,
that.
yeah, it's not bad. Very filling. All of this food is very
Yeah,
filling
it's a
food.
German health food here.
Nothing light. Yeah. And then the food that is probably the best known in the area is Maltaschen. And these are rectangular kind of ravioli dumplings that have meat or veggies in them. And those are also very nice, but again, also very filling. You can even get them in a soup for cold weather, so that's nice too.
Okay.
There are lots of vegan options. I'm not vegan, but I think surprisingly, Germany probably has more vegan options than most other countries, just because they're so into
Hmm.
meat that they seem to have a vegan option for everything that is not meat.
I feel like that was not the case in my first trip to Germany. It felt like it was, do you want a side of meat with your meat at that time?
Yes, yes, I definitely think it's a more recent development. But if
Hmm.
you are vegan, it is surprisingly vegan friendly nowadays, especially
Hmm.
in the grocery store.
Where to next?
Okay, so then you're going to go up to the Stadtbibliothek, which is the city library.
Hmm.
And on the outside, it looks a bit like a prison just because it's got the cement and the symmetrical windows all the way around. But the inside is very modern. It was built by a Korean architect, and it's a library that you'll see often on Instagram or you'll hear about from people that like to see really beautiful, interesting libraries. So that is
Okay.
worth going in. And then after that, you're going to go down to either the Porsche or the Mercedes Benz Museum, depending on if you have a preference for the car
Okay.
brand. Yeah, and I am not a person that's really into cars, but I really enjoyed the Mercedes Benz Museum. And from other people that I've talked to, also, that's definitely the preferred one of the two museums. And even though obviously it's a museum about cars, they do a very good job of telling the history of the automobile, starting in 1886, and the place of Mercedes Benz in creating cars and in the world, basically. So you start at the top, you take an escalator to the top, you start with the very first automobile, and you work your way down and around to the cars of the present day.
Yeah, those old cars are fascinating and great. They look a little more like powered bicycles, but
Absolutely, the tires were so thin, and I'm sure the
right.
ride would have been so bumpy.
They have
Um,
made it an improvement or two since then.
yes, definitely. And of course, all the cars now here, there's a lot of electric vehicles, and
Hmm.
Porsche and Mercedes Benz, of course, really known as great cars. The Mercedes Benz Museum, it's not cheap. I can't remember exactly how much it is, but I want to say it's around 20 euros to enter.
I am
But
seeing 16 euros.
16. Okay. Yep. And if you want to have a bit of a discount, there's a Stuttgart card for 1, 2, or 3 days that will get you into some of those museums. And then there's also a museum pass that I found out about. And this museum pass is actually the largest museum pass in the world. And it covers 360 museums in this area of Germany and France and Switzerland. So the corner
Hmm.
of where those three countries are. And it's, I believe, 123 euros, but it's good for a year. So again, if you're someone that's around for a long period of time, this is definitely worth it.
I have not heard of that. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I don't know what the history of how they decided to come together with three countries, but very cool.
It feels like it's a better offer for you who are spending a significant amount of time there than for me if I'm coming in for a week, but still an interesting option.
So if you're someone, again, that's living in the area, or if you're going to be here all summer, for example, then it would definitely pay. I also used
Hmm.
it in the Fabergé Egg Museum that was in Baden-Baden, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But if you have a couple museums that are going to cost around 20 euros, then it does add up fast.
Okay.
So then you're going to head to dinner, and you're going to do something special tonight. You're going to dine at a Besse, or a Bessenwirtschaft. These are temporary wine taverns in the area where they have local wine growers, and they're actually allowed to sell their wine directly to the public and open a little restaurant in their house. They can do it only for a limited time. I believe it's about 4 months a year. So sometimes they'll be open in the fall and then again in the spring, but usually not in the summer and not in winter. And they get the name from the word broom or bessen. So
Hmm.
they have this because when they're open, they'll put a broom outside of the door, and that's how people know that the bessen is open. So it's
Huh.
an old tradition that they've kept today. So it's a special thing to be able to go and do. And here the idea is a bit like a beer garden, but even more so in that you are really supposed to sit and share tables and talk to other people. So it's considered very rude to have your own conversation. I know I was there with some friends and we were talking about some work issue, and someone else was sat with us. And when we didn't really talk to her after about 5 minutes, we were told that was not appropriate and we did not do what we were supposed to do. So you definitely want to be open to talking to other people and having people sat right down next to you.
I don't know about you, but I work hard for the money that I have and don't want to just give it away. But that seems to be what the big wireless carriers like. They like keeping my money. If you're tired of years of overpaying for wireless, go from crazy high wireless bills, bogus fees, and free perks that actually cost more in the long run. Switch to Mint Mobile. Say goodbye to overpriced wireless plans, jaw dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with your existing contacts. Ditch overpriced wireless and get 3 months of premium wireless service from Mint Mobile for $15 a month. If you like your money, Mint Mobile is for you. Shop plans at mintmobile.com/traveler. That's mintmobile.com/traveler. Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month 5 GB plan required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customer offer for 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. And thanks to Mint Mobile for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. Do you love golf and love travel, but the mixture of the two gives you a headache? The fear of losing your clubs, the hassle of bringing them through the airports, oversized luggage counters, it can add unwanted stress to your vacation. Use ShipSticks to skip airport stress and costly airline fees with complimentary insurance, real-time tracking, dedicated support, and on-time delivery. Just schedule your shipment, attach your label, and ShipSticks handles the rest, delivering your gear directly to your destination. They offer white glove shipping for golf clubs and luggage. Travel worldwide without luggage. ShipSticks delivers to 180 countries for a hassle-free, gear-free journey. Right now, ShipSticks is offering our listeners 20% off your first shipment when you go to shipsticks.com and use the code AMATEUR. Go to shipsticks.com and use the code AMATEUR to get 20% off your first shipment and save yourself the hassle this golf season. That's shipsticks.com. Make sure you use the code AMATEUR so they know we sent you. And thanks to Shipsticks for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. Now, since these are temporary, you're not recommending a specific one because you don't know if that'll be open then. So we're walking around looking for brooms.
Correct. And
Okay.
most of these are not going to be in the city center. They're going to be more in the suburbs around. But
Hmm.
there are websites that will tell you where they are and when they are open.
And do you happen to know which websites those would be?
I don't know it offhand, but I'm happy to give you a link to put in the show notes.
Terrific. That'd be great.
All right, so that was day one. So the next day, you have the option to do a wine cruise on the Neckar River, which is the river that runs through Stuttgart. And you're going to want to start, if you want to see more of the vineyards, you're going to go farther north in Bessingham and then go southeast on the river. And this is a pretty cool cruise because you're going to go through a number of different locks. And you can actually hop on and hop off at different vineyards along the way. I think there are 3 or 4 different vineyards. And if you do a morning cruise, you can get off and then pick up the next boat coming in later. So it takes about 3 hours. And of course, there's food and wine on the cruise itself. It's a fun thing to do with friends and just enjoy the weather and cruise on down.
Okay.
And then Stuttgart is home to a number of different museums. We talked about the car museums, but there's a beautiful art museum. And there is my favorite quirky museum, which is the Pig Museum, the world's largest pig museum, in fact. Yeah, and there are over 40,000 items here. A lot of things like piggy banks or stuffed animals. Some of the exhibits are informational. It started off, it was just some woman's personal collection, I believe, and they eventually turned it into a museum, and it's gotten bigger and bigger. They have a giant pig bus out front and a pig trolley, and actually a great restaurant with a beer garden. And of course, the restaurant serves bacon.
As well
So,
it should.
yes, and I think this is one of those things that was in Atlas Obscura for sure, because it's a
Sure.
quirky little museum, but again, fun to see because how often do you see a pig museum? The other thing you're going to do then after your museum is to head to the town of Esslingen. It is a medieval town. This is my favorite town around in the area. And it has beautiful half-timbered houses. And I know that's not extremely rare in this area of Germany, but this is really one of the best preserved medieval towns. And it has the oldest half-timbered house in Germany that dates back to 1262.
Interesting.
Yeah, all of the old city, most of it is these half-timbered houses. And my favorite building is the Rathaus, which is like the mayor's, the city hall. And
Right.
it's this beautiful dark pink building with mint green shutters and a tiered wedding cake look. So there's some very cool architecture there. And there's also a castle that you can hike up to. And in that area, also, if you want to hike through some of the vineyards, that's a good place to do it.
And what kind of wines are we growing here in this region?
Good question. Riesling, of course, which is one of my
Sure.
favorites. Trollinger. And there's actually more reds in the area than whites that
Okay.
I've seen and heard. And Germany, they have all their own names for wines and different types of grapes. So it's hard to tell.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's like what you're drinking is actually something that has a different name or different named grape. But the wine here is very good, very cheap.
Okay.
So now I'm going to talk about a few different events. And really, this is the best part of coming to Stuttgart. So if you're going to come here, I would highly recommend that you make your time correspond with one of these events. So I just talked about Esslingen, and Esslingen has an amazing Christmas market. And in fact, there are Christmas markets all over the area. Nearly all of them are worth visiting. But the Esslingen one is unique because it's a medieval theme. You're not going to see the typical Christmas market things, although there are areas of that where you can get the typical foods and things. But in the medieval section, you're going to see lighting by torches, the Glühwein, is sold in handmade ceramic cups, which is very
Hmm.
cool. They had old-fashioned children's rides. So they actually have a Ferris wheel that was cranked by
Hand cranked.
hand. Yeah. Then they have archery and axe throwing, and you can go in a hot wooden bathtub in front of everyone, which is a bit odd, but seems to be popular. And of course, old food like bread on a stick that's roasted in a fire and chicken legs and all that stuff. A very interesting Christmas experience that doesn't seem Christmassy, but certainly worth visiting.
Hmm. Interesting.
Another event is in late August in the city of Stuttgart. They have a Weindorf, and that means a wine village in Germany, or in German. And they have dozens of pop up stands, although very nice pop up stands, wooden benches. They have all these restaurants basically that come in, and they have Schwäbisch food and wine. And this is a great chance to just try a whole bunch of different wines and food. And it's very popular on the weekends, certainly. And then the festival that Stuttgart is known for is the Cannstatter Volksfest, or the Wassen, which is the name of where it takes place. And Chris, have you been to Oktoberfest before?
I have not actually.
Oh, okay. If you're looking for something similar to Oktoberfest that might be a little less crazy, or perhaps the same level of crazy, but a little smaller and a little less touristy, you might want to consider coming to the one in Stuttgart. And this one was started in 1818 as a fall festival, I believe the same way that Oktoberfest in Munich was started.
You know. Mhm.
And everyone wears the traditional Trachten. So that is the traditional clothing, a dirndl for women, lederhosen for men. They basically have these gigantic beer tents. Now they're called tents, but they're really permanent wooden buildings that fit thousands of people in them. So tents is a deceptive name. And they have carnival rides and food. It's a very interesting way that they set it up because you have to get a reservation usually to go inside the tents. And often you reserve a whole table for 10 or 12 people.
Hmm.
And you'll pay 50 some euros, but that will usually get you 3 huge beers and a chicken dinner.
And if you're traveling in a smaller group than 10 or 12 people, what do you do?
Yes. So this is where it gets a little tricky because
Okay.
you generally can't reserve a table on your own. You have to, like I said, pretty much reserve a whole table. You can't just do 1 or 2 spots. But they have 2 seatings a day, one around say 11:30 in the morning and one around 6. And so if you go in to the more popular tents at these times, they're going to be totally full. But there are
Okay.
some tents that are less popular. Or if you go, say, around 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, where many of the people have already had their drinks and left, then you can generally get in.
Okay.
And it's the same at Oktoberfest also. So I actually went to both the Cannstatter Volksfest and the Oktoberfest in Munich, and they were very similar. Many people that I've talked to, many Germans, say they actually prefer to come to Stuttgart because it's less touristy.
Now you've ruined that, but
But both of them were wonderful, certainly. And Oktoberfest is a bit bigger. And then there is an important question. If you have been in Germany, you've probably seen these Lebkuchenherz, the gingerbread hearts with the icing and frosting and have love messages on them.
okay.
So the question is whether you should eat those or not eat them. So I was going to ask if you'd been there, what you would recommend, because I'm still trying to get opinions.
I have not had them.
Okay.
So why would one not eat them?
Exactly. I think that's the question. Supposedly, there's something that you are just supposed to keep and hang in your room,
Huh.
but they
Okay.
are gingerbread with frosting. And I do see some people eating them, but apparently it's not really the thing you're supposed to do. So they are more for decoration, more for buying for someone else and as a necklace, but
Huh.
not something that is really meant to be eaten.
Good to know.
Yeah. You'll see those at the Christmas markets too often.
Hmm.
All right. So then the next festival is a wacky one, the equivalent to the Pig Museum, in that it is the Filderkraut Festival. A Filderkraut is a type of cabbage that is a pointed cabbage, and I had never heard of one before I came here, but it has a round bottom and then it's pointed into a cone, like a head wearing a cone on top.
Okay.
And this is a very beloved cabbage. And in the suburbs of Stuttgart, in Leinfelden, Echterdingen, they have this festival in the fall. And they have, of course, sauerkraut, lots of sauerkraut that you can
Sure.
buy.
Hmm.
They have an old car parade. They have these pointed cabbages that you can buy and decorate for kids. Yeah, you can also do a shot of Bailey's from a cabbage leaf because, of course, you have to find some way to get alcohol in this. So that's a very unique festival, pretty local festival that would be fun to attend.
I'm still trying to picture how one would decorate a cabbage.
This was like with glitter and eyes and ribbons. Yes, it surprised me too, but I suppose trying to get the art aspect in there.
Cabbage jack-o'-lanterns, and that didn't seem like that was going to work.
No, I don't think you can cut them. It's just they had the decorations on them. But speaking of jack-o'-lanterns, that's actually a great segue because the other really cool festival that would be certainly worth making a trip for is the Ludwigsburg Pumpkin Festival. And this is at the Baroque Gardens of the Ludwigsburg Palace, which the palace in itself is also worth a visit. That's where the Dukes of Württemberg were. And what they have is displays and statues that are made of pumpkins. So you might have like an Elsa from Frozen made entirely out of pumpkins.
Okay.
Yeah, very unique, something I'd really not seen at all before. They also have Europe's largest pumpkin contest.
So the contest for Europe's largest pumpkin or the largest festival?
It's both. It's, I believe, the
Okay.
world's largest pumpkin festival, but they have the contest for the single largest pumpkin in Europe.
Got it. Okay.
And they'll take these really large pumpkins, and one of the days they actually have boat races. So you carve out a giant pumpkin and sit in
Huh.
it, and then they race on the water in the fountain.
Okay.
Yeah, so very unique events here. They also have on display 600 plus varieties of pumpkin. And of course, all the food is pumpkin food. So you got pumpkin bratwurst, pumpkin spätzle, pumpkin prosecco, even. And that's a great family event, very popular with kids too. But I took my parents and they loved it. It was very cool to see.
Interesting.
I had mentioned that there are a number of really cool castles in the area. And both of these, unfortunately, you want to have a car to go to. They're not accessible really by public transportation. One of them is the Hohenzollern Castle, which is the ancestral seat of the Prussian royal house of the Hohenzollern princes, who I believe were actually in Romania also. When I was in Romania this fall, there was a castle with them too. But it is on a small hilltop, so it has this beautiful 360-degree view. It's very German Romanticism architecture. The pointed towers.
Is it then from the 1800s or
I think it's from even before then, but it may be.
mid 1800s?
Mid 1800s. Okay. Yeah. And it's one of the most visited castles in Germany. And the inside is very impressive also. Beautiful ceilings, very, like I said, romantic German Romanticism architecture. And the other castle is called Liechtenstein Castle. And this one, it was quite an adventure. I tried to go there with public transportation because I don't have a car. It was a nice day, and I got a colleague to go with me and said, "Oh, we're going to go hike up to this castle because you can get there by train if You take a train and then you take a bus and it will drop you off at the bottom of this cliff. And it looks like there's a hiking path. That didn't turn out very well. It wasn't terrible on the way up, but on the way down, it was just slipping and falling the whole way because it was pretty much a sheer cliff with wet leaves
Oh
on
my.
the paths. I would not recommend going by public transportation. Definitely take a car, drive up the other way. But this castle is a smaller castle, and it's just stunning because it's on a rock face that has a drawbridge. So once you pull
Right.
up this bridge, you really can't get to it at all. And you can see all the way around it. And you do have to do a guided tour to go into it, which unfortunately is only in German, but they give you a brochure and you can tour the small castle. And the story behind it is that the original castle that was there, which the current castle was built over, there was a Count of Württemberg who bought the hunting lodge and the surrounding area. And then he was inspired by a novel that's called Liechtenstein. So he tried to make it after this novel. But the walls here are really beautiful. They had just the most beautiful wallpaper. It's a smaller castle, but sometimes those are the ones that are the most well done because they just have a limited amount of wall space. So certainly a place that I would recommend going to.
And again, one of these not really built for defense, but built by romantics.
Correct. Not at all there for defense.
Funny.
This episode is brought to you by Peacock. The new Peacock original documentary, Matthew Perry, A Hollywood Tragedy, dives deep into the beloved actor's rise to fame and his tragic death. 5 people, including Perry's personal assistant, 2 medical doctors, and an alleged Hollywood drug dealer known as the Ketamine Queen, were charged with conspiracy to illegally provide Perry with the ketamine. Explore the details of the case in this heartbreaking special, streaming now only on Peacock.
Support comes from ServiceNow. We're for people doing the creative work they actually want to do. That's why this ad was written and read by a real person and not AI. You know what people don't want to do? Boring, busy work. Now with AI agents built into the ServiceNow platform, you can automate millions of repetitive tasks in every corner of your business, IT, HR, and more, so your people can focus on the work that they want to do. That's putting AI agents to work for people. It's your turn. Visit servicenow.com.
Yeah, so both of those are a couple hours from Stuttgart. And then there are a few other places to go to that are cities around the area. So one is Tübingen, and Tübingen is famous for its university. It's a little less than an hour south of Stuttgart. It has a beautiful Rathaus, city hall, the half-timbered houses. It's on a river. And during the summer, they do punting, the boating where they have these shallow boats and then someone pushes with a stick. So you can
Okay.
go on a punting trip. It's a university city, as I said. And one other event that is special there is for their Christmas market, they have one weekend that is a chocolate market. So it is all sorts of chocolate for sale, and they have different shapes. For example, they had one stand that was selling nothing but chocolate-shaped tools, like nuts and bolts and wrenches.
Hmm.
A very interesting place to go if you're into chocolate for that weekend. Another city around is Baden-Baden,
Hmm.
which is one of these old bath towns, and there are quite a
Right.
few in the area. It has been a wealthy playground, especially popular with the Russians.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, surprisingly. So there are a lot of ruins of Roman baths that you can see.
That I
There
did
are
not know. Okay.
2 different baths. One is more of a modern thermal bath that you would go to with your family that has some
Okay.
indoor and outdoor areas. And these are popular all over Germany. There are a number in the Stuttgart area too. They're open all year round. Some are inside, some are outside, most are both. Some have water slides, some are more like almost like beaches in the sense
Hmm.
that it's a pool, but sometimes they have sand areas or they have the lawn that you can lie out on. So that's something very popular to do with locals, especially on Sundays, because it's one of the things that's open on Sundays.
Okay.
But in Baden, the real traditional bath is the one that I would recommend going to, and it's Friedrichsbad. So they have Roman Irish baths, and I don't know why the history is Roman Irish, but this was, I believe, built on kind of the area that was traditionally the Roman baths before.
When you say Roman Irish, do you mean Roman Celtic?
They translate it as Roman Irish, so it could be.
Because the Celts were very big in this area back in Roman days. France was a Celtic country at that point. So I think it's probably a translation issue.
That could be, yeah. I don't know if in German, Irish would also be Celtic. We'll have to look that up. It certainly might be. But these are interesting because it's a series of different showers and pools.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're supposed to follow each of these things. I think there's almost about 20 different stations. So you might take a hot shower and then you take a cold shower and then you go and you sit in the sauna type area for a bit. And then you go into a cold plunge pool. And then you might go into a steam room.
Huh,
And
okay.
they had a very interesting steam room because it's one of the original older versions of doing a steam room. So it's actually heated from thermal energy in the ground. And you can see the copper coils and wiring there. One of the few that's actually left nowadays.
Huh.
And then a few more pools and things. And then, of course, at the end, they have an area for you to just chill out and relax and have hot tea. And you can take as long as you want doing this process. But it's adults only. And the other interesting thing is it used to be that it was only no textiles, meaning you could not wear a swimsuit. You have to go naked.
Okay.
Yeah, which I'm sure would turn off a lot of tourists, but now they have 2 days a week where you can wear swimsuits.
Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
that is something that's quite common in Germany. Even, for example, the sauna at the gym that I go to is a
Right.
no textile sauna.
And co-ed?
The one at the gym, no, but these Roman baths, yes, co-ed.
Okay. Interesting. I
Yeah,
see that Mark Twain, when he visited the Friedrichsbad spa, said after 10 minutes, you forget time. After 20 minutes, you forget the world.
yeah, it's very nice and relaxing.
Funny.
And if you're interested in more of the Roman history, one thing in the area that's quite interesting is the Roman limes in Aalen. They are essentially a series of walls and watchtowers and outposts that separated the Romans from the quote barbarians at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So this was the northernmost limit of the Roman Empire. And you could follow these, they go pretty much all through southwestern Germany. But in Aalen, they have a museum and you can see parts of the wall there.
Interesting.
And then the last place that I would recommend is Heidelberg. Have you been to Heidelberg?
Certainly. A
Okay.
couple times.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the most popular spots here. Heidelberg has the oldest university in Germany. Very much still a university town, so there's always a lot going on there. The Heidelberg Castle, which is right on the hill, is maybe not the most beautiful castle because it's pretty much ruins of a
Ruins of
castle.
a castle, yeah.
Yeah, there's not too much that you can see, but it does have a cool pharmacy museum in there. And then, Chris, did you see the world's largest wine barrel when you were there?
Oh, that sounds familiar. I think I did.
Yeah. So they actually have two. I walked in and I thought I was looking at the biggest one, but no, that was like the mini one. There's definitely a giant wine barrel. You can walk on top and over it. It's 219 liters, apparently, that it holds. So another little quirky thing there. But when I went there recently, I did the Philosopher's Way, which is
Yep.
maybe a mile and a half little hike up across the river from the castle. That was really nice to walk along. You get great river views. And they had a special event, which is castle illuminations. So it was fireworks and light show. And apparently that happens 3 times in the summer. And it recognizes the French-German relationship. based on some historical events that had happened. But that's a good time to go and enjoy the city. And then, of course, everybody's out at night doing stuff.
This is a very significant city historically because it was Frederick who was the prince here accepting the role of being king in Bohemia that led to the 30 Years' War. And so the Frederick the Winter King, only king for one winter, was from Heidelberg.
Okay. Yeah, so that is probably the most popular tourist city in the area, I would say, is Heidelberg.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a beautiful city. Where to next? Or does that wrap up your itinerary?
That pretty much wraps it up. The one other thing I wanted to mention that is interesting to be on the lookout for is a marketing campaign that Baden-Württemberg has. And they have these yellow stickers, and you may have seen them all over the world because I've seen a bunch in many other places. And they're a yellow sticker, and it says, "Not bad, but have you ever been to Baden-Württemberg?" So the idea is that people go other places, and you have some of these beautiful castles in Czech Republic, or you're on a beach in Spain and you see a sticker that says this. So once you have seen them, if you keep your eye open, I guarantee you'll see some around.
That's funny. I do not recall seeing those before. And if people are interested in learning a little more about Baden-Württemberg, episode 559, Travel to Baden-Württemberg in Germany, covers further to the west, starting with Heidelberg, but going over to some of the other cities like Mannheim and Schwetzingen and Karlsruhe, based on a trip that I did there years back.
Yeah, you were looking at a bicycle or cars?
Yeah, I was there for the anniversary of the invention of the bicycle. That is correct.
Okay.
Anything else we need to know before we go to this area, before I get to my wrap-up questions?
I guess I would just say that Stuttgart and this area is a really good place to spend a few days. You could fly into Frankfurt, you could do Heidelberg, you could spend some time around here in Stuttgart, go down to the Black Forest, and fly out of Munich. And that would be a great 1 or 2 week long trip.
Excellent. You know my wrap-up questions. You were standing in the prettiest spot in the region of Baden-Württemberg you've covered. Let's limit it to that. Where are you standing and what are you looking at?
I'm probably going to have to say that you're on the Neckar River in the north in the vineyards.
Okay.
But I just like the water, and that's probably my favorite spot.
Excellent. And one thing that makes you laugh and say only in the Stuttgart area.
Well, Stuttgart and the area is known for having something called Kernwoche, which is basically a weekly cleaning. So this is something that actually still happens in many apartment buildings. And the idea is that all the neighbors come out on Friday evening and do the cleaning. So I think Stuttgart being known for things like that would be one of the things that I kind of giggle at.
Interesting. Germany does tend to be a clean place, just in terms of, I can't recall being any place in Germany and thinking this needs a little more attention, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yes. No, Germany is wonderful in terms of cleanliness. That's very true. The transportation, for example, is the cleanest that I've ever seen. So that is wonderful. But the Schwäbisch people are known as being very wealthy, but also, should we say, uptight about their cleaning even.
Funny. Interesting. And if you had to summarize this region in just 3 words, what 3 words would you choose?
I would choose vineyards.
Okay.
Maltaschen.
Okay.
And
interesting.
castles.
And I'm surprised that Maltaschen made the list, but all right there.
Yeah.
Excellent. And our guest again has been Kristin Montgomery. And we mentioned her 2 websites, both growingglobalcitizens.com and mycornerofgermany.com, which is still just getting started there. If we wanted to send people your best post on this area on either blog, where are we going to send them?
If you go to My Corner of Germany, there is a
Yep.
post that will be up in the next week by the time this is published
Excellent.
about
Send me a link and we'll put that
yes,
up.
what the best things to do in Stuttgart are. But there are also posts there about Christmas markets. And on my YouTube channel, which is also Growing Global Citizens, I've got some videos about the Esslingen Christmas market and the other Christmas markets in the area.
Excellent. If you send me those links, I'll put them in the show notes so people can more easily find them. Kristin, thanks so much for coming back on Amateur Traveler and sharing with us your newfound love for your corner of Germany.
You're very welcome. It was good to be back, Chris.
Hey, it's Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast here to tell you about Michelob Ultra Courtside. It's getting fans closer to the NBA with a chance to win prizes like courtside seats, a trip to All-Star Weekend, and much more. Check it out at MichelobUltra.com/courtside. Michelob Ultra Superior Access, Courtside 24-25 sweepstakes, no purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents 21 and up. Begins on October 1st, 2024, ends July 1st, 2025. Multiple entry periods. Visit MichelobUltra.com/courtside for free entry deadlines, and official rules. Message and data rates may apply. Void where prohibited.
TaxAct knows small business owners can sometimes use a little help with their taxes. That's why TaxAct has Expert Assist, a team of live tax experts ready to answer any questions you may have. Think of them as your own personal sidekick. Not like one of those funny talking animal sidekicks, more like the super smart nerding out on tax code and business casual attire sidekick, but just as helpful and lovable. TaxAct. Let's get them over with.
Thanks again to the patrons of the show who help support Amateur Traveler financially. I was just traveling with some of the patrons of the show in Cuba only 2 days ago. And remember that patrons do get the first chance to get on an Amateur Traveler trip, which we do once a year so far, and possibly twice a year in the future. If you're interested in learning more about becoming a patron of the show, go to patreon.com/amateurtraveler. And speaking of Amateur Traveler trips, the end of the voting of where we go in 2026 is coming very quickly, probably within a week after this show comes out. So if you're interested in influencing that decision, go to amateurtraveler.com/trips, which is a private Facebook group, and look for the poll that will have 8 different tours and 4 different destinations. We're deciding between Namibia and Scotland and the Baltic states and the Stands. So if you're interested in going to any of those places, go and vote now. amateurtraveler.com/trips. And with that, we're going to end this episode of Amateur Traveler. If you have any questions, send an email to host@amateurtraveler.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. And thanks so much for listening.